My name is Louis Almeida. I'm the leader, teacher, student, coach, and mentor of the Spinoza and Gurdjieff study. I have students from all over the country, not that many, but enough to keep me busy. I found some very profound ideas that I'd like to share with you. But first of all, I'd like to talk about Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer has given me a lot of good ideas, and I think he has given those similar ideas to you. Everybody takes his ideas differently. Some of us can take these ideas deeper than others. But I found that reading and listening is not enough. To really assimilate the idea, to digest the idea, to incorporate the ideas, we must, say, unpack ourselves. We must, say, begin to see where we are in our understanding. If we understand life through our senses and instincts, and from the first level of knowledge, which is hearsay and experience, we take on very little. As a young man, I remember purchasing many books, self-help books, psycho-cybernetics, spiritual leaders, Edgar Casey, whatever I could get my hands on. I wanted to change. What did I want to change? I felt bad. I felt poor about myself, poorly. I felt inferior, inadequate, very fearful. Fear of making mistakes, fear of the opinions of others. I desperately wanted approval, external approval, because I did not have my own approval. I met my teacher, the late Gregory Gover, in Santa Monica. I live in Santa Monica now. I met him in 1970. And he introduced the idea of Gurdjieff and Spinoza. I remained with him for many years. And that's what I want to get to. I learned how to, say, unpack. Everybody is carrying baggage. You heard the term. Let's take a look at your baggage. What are you carrying emotionally, psychological? This baggage is basically an invisible baggage. It has to do with how we think, how we are being, our emotional baggage, our baggage of past experiences, past negative experiences. These negative experiences affect our lives. We have these experiences from infancy. I grew up in an environment that there were, say, 10 children, and 7 boys and 3 girls. Actually, there were 11, but one of my sisters passed before I was born. But every one of my siblings suffered deeply, feeling of inadequacy. Why? Because the leaders of this community, or our family, the mother and father, were too busy to pay attention to any of the children. They were in the survival mode, not realizing that each child was unique and required attention. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that attention. I would bring my grades from home, and my mother would just sign it and not even look at it. Never ask a question, how are you doing? Any problems I can help you with? She didn't have the time. She was too busy cleaning and feeding the family. And my father was mostly working. So basically we took care of ourselves in a certain way. Well, we couldn't kill each other, but we fought a lot. And also my parents had a negative attitude towards one another and towards the family, towards the children. So we created in us, we didn't create this, it happened. One of the realities that Spinoza brings out, that man lives by the law of necessity. What does that mean? And Gurdjieff brings out the idea that man is asleep. What does that mean? But before I get into that, I want to speak about Wayne Dyer for a few minutes. How he really helped me in a certain area. He saw the value of communicating. I think he had beautiful ideas that seemed transforming. spiritual insights of human nature. He had such a positivity about life. He loved life, and he loved Lao Tzu and many others like him. I think he was an inspiration spiritually. However, I found that that was not enough. For some people, it might be. They're happy to listen or attend a seminar and love being in that environment. To me, that's not enough. And probably for you, it may be not enough, because nothing really changes. What we are doing is assuming or assimilating information. But if we are already full of information, how can we add information on top of that? We must begin to look at our own storehouse of memory, the library in our mind or in our brain. Most people think the brain is the mind. It isn't. The mind is a thinking thing. It's an intangible thing. The brain is a storehouse of memory. It's an organ. It's embedded in the skull. The skull is the protection. It's in this cavity of the skull, and the skull is supposed to protect it to some degree. That's why you should wear a helmet while you're riding your bike or riding an electric scooter. Wear that helmet, because your skull is very, very fragile. We don't realize how fragile we are. And that's why I think that Gurdjieff and Spinoza has helped me learn to have a life, a dynamic life. I've been doing this work for over 40 years, and my teacher helped me see the significance of the mind and the idea of how to come to clarity. Gurdjieff gave me information that man is asleep. What does that mean, being asleep? Being asleep is that our true intelligence is asleep. That we walk like automatons, automatic, without really reflection. We react. Our emotions drive us, and our desires drive us. Think about this. If you're not happy, can you will yourself to be happy? If you feel uncomfortable being around people, to socialize, can you will yourself to be vivacious and be gregarious, talkative, communication? When I was a young man, I was very afraid of communicating because I didn't know how to communicate. I suffered. I had a feeling of being stupid because I was told I was stupid as a boy. I was, in comparison with my younger brother, he learned his ABCs before I did. He even grew a mustache before I did. I felt envious and I hated him. But now I understand through Spinoza and Gurdjieff the reality of what growth is and how to look at oneself. Gurdjieff talks about the idea of self-observation. What does that mean? Self-observation is to observe ourselves without judgment. But what do we observe? We observe we have inner sensitivities of that. We feel pain, we feel hate, and we feel anger. And those are the three primary emotions that we'll be discussing. Pain, the definition of pain. Through Spinoza, I've learned this, that pain is a decrease of power. What does that mean? Decrease of power. We always want to be affirmed and approved of. And because we lack self-approval. If we lack self-approval, we are in pain. We want something. We desire approval. We want fame. That's why many individuals who are in the entertainment field suffer greatly. But when they are on stage and they're performing well and the audience is applauding them, they feel wonderful on stage. But off stage, they get back to their old self. I was told that comedians, even though they're very, very comical and funny, they make us laugh, and yet they suffer. Why do they suffer? Well, each individual is unique. They have their own set of circumstances that create problems in them. Feeling of loneliness, feeling of worthlessness, feelings of helplessness. This is a state of lack of power. So what is power? Power is to come to your own sense of self through the clarity of your understanding. But how does that come about? It comes about when we begin to learn that we have a mind, and that mind can learn how to think clearly. Think about what? Oneself. The most difficult education on the planet is to learn about oneself. Socrates talked about to know thyself is the most important education. But how does one do that? You cannot just willfully look at yourself without judgment. Try it. You're always judging yourself. But if you learn how to see with an openness, as a child is in a state of wonder. What a beautiful thing to see a child of 2 or 3 years old. What's that? What's that? Look at that. What's that? With open eyes. How do we begin to look at ourselves as a child would? With open eyes, with wonder. This will be continued, and I recommend taking a look at my website. It's the bottom of this video. And I hope to hear from you. If you want more information and you want to join my group, ask questions, send me an email. Go to my website. Talk to you later.